I'm just going to come right out and say it, guys. The University of Colorado Boulder, they just proved that cannabis is no longer considered a gateway drug. Just go ahead and let that sink in. Legalizing recreational cannabis at the state level does not increase substance use disorders or use of other illicit drugs among adults, and in fact, may reduce alcohol-related problems. They say follow the science, and it looks like they're pretty clear about what it's saying here. So do you guys remember Biden's campaign promise on decriminalizing marijuana? Yeah, we got proof of that, right? So unless that was a deep fake on Biden's own channel, I would say that our president has some explaining to do here. I mean, really the question is, why the hell isn't President Biden ending the federal war on cannabis? Getting the federal government out of the war on marijuana is popular with both Republicans and Democrats, so what's the holdup? Why is Biden not keeping his promise to do it? Now, one idea that I came across online said that they don't want to legalize marijuana because then they lose more of their legalized slavery through the prison systems. They would rather fund wars rather than fund anything to help our citizens, especially those who are struggling with addiction. So what do you guys think about this? Do you feel like the government likes to keep the American people under its thumb? I already have my own personal opinion on this, but I'd love to hear from you guys. Hit me up in the comment section down below, or you could just say yes or no. I mean, Portugal did it. They decriminalized all the drugs in 2001, and they saw a dramatic drop in overdoses, HIV infection, and other drug-related crimes. So yeah, it kind of makes you wonder about, whether it's about saving lives or about maintaining control when it comes to our government. You definitely need to pay attention to this one, guys. Also, if you own a home, make sure your home is protected. Get your free home warranty quote. There's a link in the description down below of this video. So first, they want science, right? All right, let's give them science. It says right here in the headline, gateway drug, no more. Study shows legalizing recreational cannabis does not increase substance abuse. The study of more than 4,000 twins from the Colorado and Minnesota found that legalizing recreational cannabis at the state level does not increase substance use disorders or use of other illicit drugs among adults, and in fact, may reduce alcohol-related problems. Also, the research says that there's no link between cannabis legalization and increases in cognitive, psychological, social, relationship, or financial problems. Wow, let me just go ahead and repeat that just for a little bit more emphasis on that. No link between cannabis legalization and increases in cognitive, psychological, social, relationship, or financial problems. Now, I like what the lead researcher said here, quote, "We really didn't find any support for a lot of the harms people worry about with legalization. Today, 21 states have legalized recreational cannabis. Half of the U.S. population lives in a place where it is legal, and several more, including Minnesota, are considering legalization." Now, I'm neither here nor there when it comes to this debate, but I am all for holding power to account. And by that, I mean asking President Biden why he hasn't really done much of what he promised to do back in 2021. I mean, the president's approval ratings are in the sewer, and it's not surprising. President Biden's enjoyed public support at the beginning of his presidency when he was actually doing things for the public like economic stimulus checks, child tax credits, SNAP and EBT benefits, unemployment, and all that. But sadly, most of that is a distant memory now. Have you guys noticed this? Biden and his spokespeople barely even talk about the ambiguous legislative proposals that they introduced with so much fanfare back in 2021. And gas and food, they just keep getting more expensive. Given the situation, you would expect that the administration would be jumping at any chance they could get to accomplish really anything that falls in the sweet spot of their presidential Venn diagram, where number one, it aligns with the president's campaign promises from 2020. Two, can be done without relying on the sometimes stubborn Democratic Senator Joe Manchin or Kyrsten Sinema, and most importantly, are super popular. Now, I understand why you would think that because it just makes sense. This is the government that we're talking about, right? Descheduling cannabis from Schedule I, the DEA's classification for drugs with the highest risk of abuse and no medical benefits, and pardoning every federal prisoner serving time for non-violent weed offenses, they would check all three boxes. Amazingly, President Biden hasn't done squat. Has President Biden just forgotten? Yeah, I don't think so. Just recently, three big senator names, Sanders, Warren, and Booker, they sent President Biden a letter urging the administration to use its existing authority to deschedule cannabis and issue pardons to all individuals convicted of non-violent cannabis-related offenses. I mean, at this point, it's kind of hard to see the problem here other than maybe Biden just did it for the votes. But you never know. 2024 is just around the corner. It would be better for him to actually do something now. Decriminalizing drug use is a good first step. Decriminalization changes the way that we think about drugs. It totally changes our perspective perspective on drugs. Now, instead of treating drugs as a criminal issue, we start seeing it as more of a health and social concern. And so that means we shift our focus from slapping on handcuffs to addressing the root causes of drug use, like inequalities in housing and healthcare. Decriminalization saves government money, more importantly, taxpayer money. Right now, a huge chunk of the justice system, police, courts, prisons, they're all dealing with drug-related crimes. Huge waste of taxpayer money. I mean, think about all the addiction and mental health resources that we desperately need right now. With the money that we save from decriminalization, we can actually invest it into better places like community-led initiatives, healthcare, housing, social programs, or maybe even payments for the American people, especially our Social Security fam. Decriminalization positively impacts people's lives. Now, here's where things get even better. Decriminalization has a positive impact on people's lives, especially those who are targeted by drug law enforcement, people who are poor, homeless, or racialized. Now, for them, decriminalization can be a game changer. I mean, just think about it. When we wipe out those criminal records that are tied to drug possession, it opens up the doors for people to find employment and housing. How many people can't get a good job or find good housing because they got a criminal record that's tied to something as silly as marijuana possession? Plus, it means fewer run-ins with the police for people who use drugs. Maybe with a little bit of luck, those interactions won't even happen at all. Decriminalization reduces stigma. See, negative views on drugs and the people who use them, they play a huge role in the overdose crisis. But when we reshape the way that our families, our friends, and even doctors think about drugs, it becomes a lot easier to have an open and honest conversation about drug use. And you know what that does? It encourages people who use drugs to talk to their doctors about prescription-based therapies. And at the very least, it helps bring drug use out of isolation where fatal overdoses tend to be the highest. Now, a friend told me the story of his wife. She had a stroke at age 24. It's crazy. Now, the effects of the stroke, they still linger, and all the prescription medication in the world did nothing for her. She was having suicidal thoughts, she couldn't eat, she couldn't sleep, just uncomfortable until they turned to cannabis, a plant that they used as a teenager to laugh, eat, and have a good time. It's now what his wife uses on a daily basis to function as a happy, healthy adult. It's amazing what natural remedies are capable of doing rather than force-feeding pills down a person's throat. Or maybe it's the pharmaceutical companies that don't want this to be known. That might affect their profits. Maybe that's why there's been a bit of a delay. What do you guys think? Can anybody relate to this story? Now, here's another point. Decriminalization encourages people to call 911 at the scene of an overdose. Right now, the fear of the police stops a lot of people from making that phone call. Now, sure, there are Good Samaritan laws that protect against charges for simple possession during an overdose, but the fear is still a big obstacle. But if we decriminalize drug possession, people won't necessarily worry about criminal penalties anymore, and the police won't need to show up for overdose calls. Decriminalization is a harm reduction. Now, some people worry that it might lead to more drug use, but I don't know. Let me tell you, the evidence really just doesn't back it up. We've already seen it in dozens of countries, states, and cities that have decriminalized drugs. The use doesn't skyrocket. In fact, in some places, it actually has gone down. And that's not all. Decriminalization lowers overdose and disease rates while giving people better access to social services and healthcare. In a straightforward approach to reducing harm by getting rid of or minimizing the source of those harms, criminalization. Now, I gotta admit, these are some pretty good points. And if they want even further proof, you got Portugal to look at. So back in 2001, Portugal became the first country to decriminalize the possession and consumption of all illicit substances. So instead of getting arrested, if somebody was caught with a personal stash, then they might just get a warning, a little fine, or maybe be told to see their local commission, a doctor, a lawyer, and a social worker about treatment options, harm reduction, and support services. And guess what? The opioid crisis actually stabilized after that. Over the years, there's been some major drops in problematic drug use, HIV and hepatitis infections, overdose deaths, drug-related crime, and even incarceration rates. HIV infections went from a crazy high of 104.2 new cases per million in 2000 to just 4.2 cases per million in 2015. But it's not just about the legal change that they made. It was a whole change of perspective. There was a whole cultural shift happening in the country. It was about how they viewed the drugs, the addiction, and themselves. Now think about it. The law was just a reflection of what was already going down in the clinics, the pharmacies, and around the kitchen tables all over Portugal. By officially decriminalizing it, it made it way easier for different services like health, psychiatry, employment, housing to team up and work together to serve their communities. They had been struggling struggling to pool their resources and expertise, but the new policy had made it happen in a more effective way. Just a few weeks back, the Texas House of Representatives, they passed the state's marijuana decriminalization bill. Now, this bill would remove criminal penalties for the possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana or cannabis concentrate. Such possession would be reclassified as a Class C misdemeanor, a citable offense that's not subject to arrest, and carry a fine of up to $500. They summarized it this way, quote, basically, the person is given a ticket, goes to court, they're assessed a fine, then the court tells them you got 6 months to pay and you need to stay out of trouble during that time, end quote. Okay. They pointed out how, quote, there are tens of thousands of arrests for personal use possession in Texas annually, and those cost our state hundreds of millions of dollars every single year, not to mention countless hours of law enforcement and prosecutor time, end quote. Hundreds of millions of dollars every single year. Definitely sounds like they need to be using that money for something else. Maybe to come up with some more payments and benefits for the American people who actually need that. What do you guys think? So in conclusion, let's just keep pushing for opening up the dialogue and holding our politicians to the campaign promises that they make. And yeah, more money for programs that actually help people. Am I right? But hey, I just want to thank you guys so much for sticking around. Hope you guys got all the information in today's cannabis update and daily news report, holding Biden up to his campaign promises, looking at other ways to raise money for the American people, and overall striving towards some positive change for a change. Y'all know what I mean? Now, you guys should see some videos here and here. Make sure to click those videos and check out the next ones. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and drop your thoughts down below. Again, I always want to appreciate you guys for watching. Thanks so much for dropping a like for the video, sharing these videos, and I'm going to see you guys on the next one. Y'all be safe.